On August 28, 2025, Wall Street was the site of a significant protest, with activists marching to oppose the policies of the Trump administration. This event, led by civil rights leaders like Revza Sharpton and Martin Luther King III, drew a large crowd and marked one of the most substantial demonstrations since the start of the current presidential term. The March on Wall Street specifically targeted the administration's efforts to roll back diversity, equity and inclusion (DEI) initiatives, which organizers labeled a civil rights fight of our generation. Causes and reasons. The recent protests on Wall Street are driven by a convergence of economic, social and political grievances. While the immediate catalyst for the August march was the administration's stance on diversity, equity and inclusion (DEI), this protest is part of a broader wave of dissent that began earlier in the year. The hands-off. Protests in April 2025, for instance, saw millions of people demonstrate against a range of policies. Economic concerns. A primary driver of public anger is the administration's economic policy. The imposition of new global tariffs has caused significant market volatility, sparking fears of a global trade war and a potential recession. Protesters are concerned about the impact on their personal finances, including their 401k, retirement accounts, and the potential for higher inflation and slower growth. They argue that these policies, along with proposed cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, disproportionately hurt working and middle-class Americans. Social and civil rights issues. The protests are also a reaction to what activists perceive as a rollback of civil rights and social progress. The Trump administration's crackdown on DEI programs, along with controversial immigration policies and a perceived disregard for democratic institutions, have fueled widespread opposition. Union groups, civil rights organizations, women's rights advocates, and LGBTQ+ groups have joined forces, seeing the administration's actions as a threat to their fundamental rights and a step toward authoritarianism. Political discontent. Beyond specific policies, there's a deep-seated frustration with the administration's overall approach to governance. Critics point to what they see as a disregard for traditional legal procedures, an undermining of the federal workforce, and a focus on the interests of billionaires at the expense of ordinary Americans. The protests are framed by many as a defense of American democracy and economic well-being. Consequences and analysis. The protests have several key consequences and can be analysed from a few different perspectives. Impact on public discourse. The demonstrations, particularly those on Wall Street, have successfully captured media attention and amplified the concerns of the opposition. They bring issues like economic inequality and the future of DEI to the forefront of national conversation, making it more difficult for the administration to dismiss these topics. Economic and corporate response. The protests, especially those targeting Wall Street, aim to pressure corporate America to take a stance against the administration's policies. Revza Sharpton's call for a boycott of companies that have ended DEI programs puts businesses in a difficult position, forcing them to choose between aligning with the administration or with activist and consumer groups. Wall Street itself has shown signs of being uneasy with some of the administration's policies, with some analysts suggesting a capital strike as a way for the financial sector to push back on protectionist tariffs and other actions that threaten global trade. Political mobilization. The protests serve as a powerful tool for political mobilization. They bring together a broad coalition of progressive, labor, and civil rights groups, creating a united front against the administration. This collective action can help galvanize voters and influence future elections, demonstrating a clear and vocal opposition. However, the protests can also lead to clashes and violence, as seen in some instances, which can alienate potential supporters and provide a pretext for a strong police response. Prediction and solutions. The future of these protests will likely depend on a few key factors. If the administration continues to pursue its current policies, particularly on DEI and tariffs, we can expect the protests to continue and potentially grow in size and frequency. The summer of 2025 has already seen a significant uptick in activism, and this trend is likely to persist. However, the effectiveness of these protests will be determined by their ability to maintain momentum and translate public anger into concrete political and economic changes. For solutions, protesters and their allies can adopt a multi-pronged strategy. On a political level, this includes supporting and campaigning for candidates who oppose the current administration's policies. On an economic level, activists can continue to organize boycotts and pressure corporations to align their practices with principles of diversity and social responsibility. Finally, on a grassroots level, protesters can focus on building sustainable community-based organizations that can address local issues and provide a network of support. The goal is to move beyond mere demonstration and build a lasting movement capable of effecting real change, similar to the legacy of movements like Occupy Wall Street, which, while not achieving all its immediate goals, fundamentally shifted the national conversation on inequality.